Welcome everyone. This is my first video on this channel, and this is going to be kind of I guess you could say a practice session, but really what I'm going to be trying to do is covering some of the fundamental SQL skills that someone would want to have if they're trying to get into data analytics, especially if you're going for your first role as a data analyst or looking for any junior level or entry level position. You are surely going to want to at least have a good understanding of these basic SQL fundamentals, the select clause, from, where, order by, group by, having. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, this is the first time I'm doing this. So I've created a bunch of tables, and in the follow-up video, I'm going to be posting a link to my GitHub so that you guys can actually download the file and just paste the code so you're not having to enter in all this data manually. But for now, bear with me. This is kind of a good way for me to practice, kind of presenting myself. And of course, it's a great way to practice for those interviews, because oftentimes during an interview, they may ask you certain questions. They may say, like, what are the different types of joins? Give us an example. Or they might have you actually type out a SQL query, or they might just like want to see your thought process and be like, they might give you something like super complicated, and they just want to kind of see, you know, what your thought process is like and what you would do to come up with a solution. So without any further ado, okay, so let's go ahead, and I created some tables here. So let's just go ahead. We're going to start off with the very basic, the most basic, and that is selecting every column and every row. So that just goes as follows: select time, and then use that little star asterisk symbol. And you'll notice that you want to try to capitalize keywords when you're typing out queries. It just makes it more readable. So if you see me kind of messing up in my typing, it's because I really want to make sure that I'm making it easy to read. So we're going to go ahead and select, like I mentioned, every single row and every single column. And if I go ahead and hit the execute button here, you can see here, these are all different rows we got here. So let me go ahead and let me go ahead and get rid of that, because we don't want to see that right now. So let me go ahead and execute that. Okay, so yeah, once again, it's not a very big table because I want it to be easily readable. So as you can see here, we've got our 4 columns here: first name, last name, gender, age, and salary. Okay, so many times you're not going to want to select every single column. So what can you do to select specific columns? Well, that's where we can go. You can go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and put my tables out here. So it's tables. So this is a helpful way to see what the names of your columns are, so you're not having to go back and forth. Okay, so let's say we just want to print out first name, last name, and the age. Well, what you're going to do here is, another thing too, whenever you're typing out SQL queries, you want to try to make them as readable as possible. So what I like to do is I like to come down to the next line, indent, and then list out the column names. So we're going to go ahead and do first name, comma, and each column I'm selecting is going to have its own row here, just for legibility purposes. Last name, comma, and then age. Now you're not going to put a comma after the last column that you select, and then we're going to come up age, and then we're going to go from, and once again, the name of the table here, and we're going to go ahead and hit execute. Oops, we got a little error here. Oh, I guess against employees 1. There we go. So as you can see, we only selected the 3 columns here: first name, last name, age. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it doesn't matter what order you put them in. So even though in the table it's listed as first name, last name, gender, age, you can actually do it this way too. You can say, like, okay, well, I'm going to select the age first. I'm going to go to last name first, and let's just go ahead and do gender. So it doesn't matter in what order you put the columns in, it still should execute. So like, I listed age first, so that's going to come in as the first column here: last name and gender. And so that's pretty much what you can do to select various columns if you don't want to select every single column. Now, this is where you start getting into like filtering your data, and this is where the where clause comes into play. Now, pretty much you can be certain that in almost every query you type, you're going to be using the where clause, because let's say you've got a data set that's got like hundreds of thousands of rows. Well, you're not going to want to select all the data because, for one, it could slow down the system. You're probably not going to make the data administrator too happy. So this is where the where clause comes in. So without further ado, now we're introducing the next major clause. So I've covered select. Every query is going to start off with the select, and it's going to have a from, because you got to figure the data's got to come from somewhere, so you got to make sure that you have these two clauses in your query. Okay, so now we're going to start filtering our data. Now the where clause basically filters by row. Not to get confused with the having clause, which is later on down the line, but the where clause. Okay, so like I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and select all of our data again so we can see what our table looks like with all the data from employees. And I got to remember, I got to put the 1 in there. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, so now let's say we only want to select, so the where clause, I mean, there's different things you can do with the where clause, but we're going to keep it nice and simple. Let's say we just want to select only those employees that are female. Okay, so what we're going to do is, once again, we can just go, I'm just going to go ahead and leave the asterisk symbol because I just want to really focus on really describing what the where clause does. And we're going to go ahead and select and then make sure that you put from. We're going to do it from the employees table where, and again, okay, so now we're gender is equal to, so whenever, because this is, so if you look at our data types here, these are strings or characters, and then you've got integers here and then integers here. So whenever you're comparing or filtering by a string or a character column, you got to make sure that you enclose it in single quotes. So I'm going to put female, make sure I spell it right here, where gender equals female, and we should see what happens. So I got an underline there. Let's see what happens. Okay, so as you can see here, yep, it selected only the rows where the gender was female. So as you can see, that's filtering our data, and you're going to be pretty much using the where clause in pretty much every single query. Okay, so let's go back and let's go ahead and show our entire table once again. We can go ahead and let's say we want to only select, let's say we want to, so now we're going to use some comparison operators. Let's say we only want to select employees that are over the age of 30. Okay, so once again, we're going to come down here where age is greater than 30. All right, let's just say equal. So you can, so as far as comparison operators go, you have like greater than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and not equal to. So we're going to go ahead and do greater than or equal to 30. So we, as you can see here, we have 8 rows. And if I go ahead and run this, we're going to, so now we've got 7. So we only had 1 employee that was less than 30. So now I can go ahead and just do the opposite here, and we're going to end up with that 1 employee. So yeah, 1 row was returned meeting that criteria. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch that back to 30. Okay. Oops, I got it. I got an extra character in there. Okay, there we go. Alright. So less than, okay, so now I want greater than or equal to 30. That's what I meant to do. I meant to switch that to greater than or equal to. Alright. Okay, so now we can even further filter our records. Let's say, okay, we want to have age, 30 or above, but also those who are male. Okay, so in this case, this is what you do. This is where you put in logical operators here, and so you got to make sure that you gender is equal to, remember you got to enclose in single quotes, male, and let's see, we got, and gender equals male. So now we should only get results that are over 30, ages over 30 and above, and male. Now, not to get confused, now let's see what happens if we put the or. So basically how this works is both of these criteria have to be met. So the age has to be greater than or equal to 30, and the gender has to be male. So both of these have to be true. Now, when it comes to using the or, then only one of them have to be true. So meaning if the age is greater than or equal to 30, or if they're male. So as you can see here, we only had 5 results returned, but now we go ahead and hit the execute. We get 7 because it doesn't matter. Only one of these have to be true. So as you can see here, we got above 30, but they're male. Let's go ahead and switch this to female, so maybe I can give a better indicator. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit execute. So now we have all 8 columns returned. But let's go ahead and switch that to, so if I put and, so we got greater than or equal to 30, and the gender is female. I'm going to go ahead and hit execute. All right. So we have 2 returned here because they have to meet both of their criteria. Even though we have Chloe that's not shown on here, she's not 30. But watch what happens if I put the or on here. If I put the or, now we're going to get our 3 records returned. Actually, we get more of them returned because now we're including either above 30 or above, or they're female. So as you can see, you want to be careful when using the and or the or. Now another one we can do is, let's say we want to select employees who are, this is another example of how you can use comparison operator, is maybe we want to do, let's say age is not equal to, let's see, 51. Let's see what happens here. So we shouldn't have Mike being returned here. So yep, there is no Mike Wilkinson here. So that's another example. All right, so that's an example of using a where clause. Now, another key item to look at here is distinct. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to use a different table, so this gives us a clearer, so we're going to go ahead and select, let's go ahead and select from the members table. Okay, so we got from members. Okay, so this is our members table. Once again, we got first name, last name, city, age, gender, membership, ID, and refer back. So we're not going to be worried too much about that right now. However, let's say we've got thousands of rows and we've got so many different cities, but we want to figure out like what are the different types of cities in our data set without having to scroll all the way down and determine all our different cities. Well, this is where the distinct keyword comes into play. So if we go ahead and select, so we're going to go ahead and select, let's go ahead and select city from members, and we're going to hit execute. Okay, so as you can see here, there are some duplicate values. So we don't want to have those duplicates. We want to just, all we're concerned about is figuring out what cities are in our data set. So this is where the distinct keyword comes in. So we're going to go ahead and come down here, distinct city from members. All right, and then come down here. And as you can see, now we get what we want to be returned. So we have Bellevue, Bellingham, Kirkland, and Seattle. So those are our 4 cities in our table. So that's how you can use the distinct keyword. So whether you're looking for like city or maybe gender, or maybe like if you're like in HR, you might be wanting to see how many different departments there are or sub-departments. So that's where you can use the distinct keyword there. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back here and let's go ahead and select all of our data again. Okay, so we got the distinct. Okay, so now let's say, okay, so we want to figure out, okay, maybe we want to see who our members are between, we want to only select members who are within a certain range. So how can we do this? I mean, we could do something like, okay, so select, one thing I'm trying to make this more readable. Let's just go ahead and do first name, and let's go ahead and do age. And then members. And see what we get returned there. Okay. All right. So now we only want to select members who are between 40 and 50 years of age. Okay, so there's probably a couple of different ways you can go about this. The first way is, of course, you can go like this, where age is greater than or equal to 40, and you got to be careful because if we put or, we're gonna, so like here I'll show you what. Okay, let's go ahead and let's put and age is less than or equal to 50. Okay, so let's go ahead and, okay, so like, yeah, we don't want, so greater than, so while we get in third, okay, so yeah, age is less than 50 and age is, what happened there? Okay, greater than, I want to be age is, okay, greater than or equal to 40. Okay, let's try that again, just because. Okay, so there we go. So yeah, make sure that you have greater than or equal to 40, but they're less than 50. Now let's see what happens if I put the or in here. If I put the or in there, we're going to get more people returned, because it's assuming that they can either be over 40, but they're under 50. So pretty much that encompasses pretty much just about anyone. Okay, now a much easier way to do this is the between keyword here. Yes, you see how kind of confusing that was? Well, if you're looking for a range, that's just where between comes into play here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get rid of this. And like I said, I want to only select members between the ages of 40 and 50. Okay, where age between 40 and 50. Okay, and there you have it. And keep in mind that this is actually inclusive, so it will include those for 40 and 50. So that's a quick and simple way if you're trying to select a range. You know, if you're trying to filter by a range, the between keyword will save you a lot of grief. Okay, so we've covered distinct, we've covered in between, the whereby clause. Okay, now we're kind of building onto our query. So if I go ahead and, so right now so far we've covered select, we've done from, we've done, let's see, what else have we done? We've done the where clause, we've done distinct, and we've also done, let's see, what else have we done? We've done, we just did between. Okay. Now the next one we're going to go with is order by. That's the next big step, is order by. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add order by onto here. Okay, so let's go ahead and select all of our data again. Select. And I've got to turn this on to see if I'm getting any comments here, because this is my first video. I don't know if I'm getting any comments here or not. I doubt it, because yeah, I figure, yeah, I'm not getting any comments yet. So this is my first video on this channel, so probably no one even knows I'm live right now, so I don't know what I'm stressing about. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. Okay, all right, so we've got all of our data here, but let's say we want to I'm going to go ahead and select the first name, last name, and we want to order by age. Okay, so we want to figure out how we can go about this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and select. We're going to do first name, last name, and actually I want to make sure I keep to my, there we go. And remember. Okay, so now we're going to add the order by in here. So go ahead, order by, we're going to go ahead and order by age. And if we order by age, it's going to return the age. So the default is in ascending order. Now, so yeah, as you can see, 30. Now, if you want to order it by the oldest, now you have to type in descend, or just DESC, and now it's going to start from the oldest to the youngest. Likewise, let's say we want to order by our members alphabetically. Well, if we do that, we're going to go ahead and do, let's go ahead and do last name. And then as you can see here, last name, see, if it's in descending order, it's going backwards. So we go from Z to A. But if we go ahead and take out the descending, it's going to, when we hit the execute, it's going to be in alphabetical order. And you can also go, I mean, some people might put ascending, but generally the default is ascending. And you can actually order by more than one column. Now, of course, in this case, it's not going to really make much sense to order by multiple columns, but let's say we did have people with like the same last name, and sometimes you do occasionally have people with the same first name, but to have both the same first name and last name is pretty rare. Yeah, this is not a really good example, but why not? We can go ahead and show that we can order by last. Let's go ahead and order by. So let's go ahead and order by first name. We're just going to leave it as ascending, and then last name. Yeah, like I mentioned, this is probably not a very good example, but so we order by first name, and then so it's going to order by the first name, and then yeah, so not a very good example. So yeah, that's probably in a better data set, but just to let you know that you can order by more than one column. Now, a shortcut that some people like to use, others don't like it so much, is instead of actually typing out the column name, you can actually just type in like the number. So for instance, if I want to order by first name, since I listed that first, I can just put a 1 there, and I'm going to go ahead and put descending. And if I hit execute here, so it's going to go from Z to A. Let's go ahead and use. So now let's say I want to order by age. Well, I would just type in a 3, and so that's a keyboard shortcut. So I guess this comes in handy if you've got like a lot of different columns and you don't want to type them all out. But keep in mind that if you're sharing this code with someone else or a bunch of other people, it might become a little confusing or ambiguous if you're going to order by the digit number. So it's probably best just to use the actual column name for readability purposes. So that's the order by. And then if I can recall, I know in MySQL they have the limit clause, but I want to say in SQL Server. Let's go ahead and let's try this. So I'm going to go ahead and select. I'm sure I'm trying to. Nope, I guess it worked. All right, cool. So yeah, so there are going to be some minor differences in syntax when it comes to using a relational database management system. So for instance, MySQL. So generally, if you understand how to type a query, it shouldn't take you too long to figure out like the differences in syntax. Say like if you're using a MySQL or Oracle or SQL Server or Postgres. They're each going to have slight differences, but for the most part, as long as you understand the main points of how to type in a query, then it shouldn't take too long to figure out the variation in syntax between different relational database management systems. Okay, so now that I've got this, let's say we want to figure out, let's go back to our employees table here. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make a note here. So we have the limit, but that's not applicable to this. That's more like for MySQL. This one's going to be top. Okay, so let's go ahead and select from our employees table. Okay, so we got employees. All right, so okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to kind of combine. We're going to combine we're gonna do we're gonna combine. Let's see. We're gonna do select from where, and let's see. So we're gonna do an order by limit. Let's see. We're gonna only select the top 3 earning males. So how will we type? So I'm gonna go ahead and type it out. So we're gonna go ahead. All right. Who are the top 3 earning male employees? Okay. So first thing you want to do whenever you're trying to solve a problem is you want to break it down into steps. So this is where we're kind of breaking it down into simpler steps. It's going to come in really handy. And so I'm just going to kind of walk along as if you're trying to break it down into simpler steps. So the first thing you want to do here is, okay, we're going to figure out, we're going to go ahead and select our specific columns. And let's see, we're going to do and salary. Okay. Okay, so this is part of it. Yeah, so okay. Oh, we got an error here. Let's see. Oh, I always keep forgetting to put that one there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and execute. Okay, so now we're only concerned with the top 3, the highest salaries for males. Okay, so now this is where you break it down. Go ahead, we're going to put in our where clause here, where gender is equal to, remember, and close it in single quotes. And right now, so we're going to go filter our records. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and use the order by. So we're going to order it. We're going to go ahead and add an order by. And what do we want to order by? We want to order by salary because we want to figure out who our highest earning males are. So we're going to go ahead and do an order by salary. And because we want to find the top 3 highest, we're going to put descending. So we're going to go ahead and put descending. Okay, and so now we want to filter further. We only want to return the top 3. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and put select top 3. And that should, and there you have it. That is how you find the top 3 males in our employees table. So we got Mike, John, and Woody. So that is how you can combine using the top, the from, the where, and the order by. Now if we really want to get nitty gritty, we could add in a in between, but that's not going to really work because this is not that big of a table. Okay, so now let's go on to some string functions here. So we're going to go ahead and select our data from, let's go ahead and do employees. Got to make sure I put my from in there. All right, go ahead and hit execute. Oh, employees 1, and I keep making that same mistake. Okay, so now we're going to go into some string functions here. Now the first one is concatenation. Okay, let's say I want to return the first name and last name as a single column. Okay, this is where concatenation is really useful. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come down here, and it's going to hit concat, and then first name, last name, okay, all right, so okay, but you notice there it concatenated them, but there is no space. So to fix that, you just have to make sure that you add a space in there. Make sure you separate each column or string with a comma. And if we hit execute again, so now we have a space. So that is an example of how you can use the concat function. Now as you see here, there is no column name. So this is where using aliases come in handy. So let's say you want to make it readable to whoever you're presenting. Maybe you've got to present a report. Well, to make it more presentable, you can actually give it a column name, and this is where you can use the as keyword. You don't have to type it in, but for readability purposes, it's often helpful. And we're going to make sure I use quotation marks as full name. And then if we go ahead and hit execute, so now we've got full name as our alias. And so aliases, you can use aliases for columns and tables, which will be really useful when it comes to doing joins. Whenever you're doing joins, you are commonly going to be using aliases for your table names to cut down on the necessary, cut down on typing that you got to do. Okay, so we got that. Okay, so that's the first string function we have is concat. Okay, another one we have is, of course, we've got, let's go ahead and do lower. And if we got lower, we're going to go ahead and first name. And then another one we have here is upper. Okay, we got one. All right, so we got here. Oop, what happened there? What happened? Uh-oh, that's not good. Oh, man. Oh, okay. Whew. Okay, that had me worried there for a minute. Okay. Okay, so here, as you can see, this returned everything in lowercase, and upper returned everything in uppercase. Now, if you're coming with a good, strong Excel background, you will notice that there's a lot of commonalities between some of these functions. So having a good Excel background is definitely a big help when it comes to learning SQL, among other things. So for all you people out there who are beginning using Excel, or for those of you who think that Excel is going by the wayside, not so fast, because it definitely can come in really handy to be up to date on those Excel skills. Okay, so now we have upper and lower. Another one we can use, we have like the substring. So I'm going to go ahead and, now when it comes to using the substring, we're going to go ahead and pass in, let's say we want to pass in the first name, but we only want to select, say, like the first 3 characters. So how we can do that is we can select from 1, I want to say it's from 1, and then we're going to only select 3. So let's go ahead and do this. So we got first name, and then we're going to go ahead and set substring. We're going to start with the first character, and we're going to only select 3 characters. So what's nice about this is that actually, as you read down here, it tells you like what each argument is, which is really helpful. So you got the expression, that's the expression, the starting position, and the length. So I only want to take 3 characters, and I'm going to say as partial. Let's just go ahead and give it as partial name. Okay. And make sure we have our from in here. Employee. Make sure I put my employees 1 in there. Okay. So yep, as you can see here, it's selected. So you can compare. So you got the first name. That's the expression. That's the expression we're evaluating against. We started from the first position, but we're only taking the first 3 characters. Now let's see what happens if I start at number 2. So if I put 2 in here, if I go ahead and execute, notice that starting from the second position. So it's going to be starting from the O. So that's why I wanted to put the first name in full, so you guys can actually see what goes on here. And if I only put, see if I put 1 in here, if I put 2, it's only going to select 2. Oh, I put 3. I want to put 2. So now it's only going to select two characters. So let's say we want to select the first name, but we only want to select the first initial. Well, we can do this by using the substring. So we're going to go ahead and hit substring. We're going to hit last name. Last name. We're going to start off with the first position, and then we're going to take 1 from employees, and then go ahead and there. That's the first initial, and we can actually combine string functions. So what we can do here is we can actually concat. So if I wanted to come up here, I could do concat first name, and then we're going to go ahead and do sub. And I want to make sure I have a space in there. make sure I put my comma. And I might have some mistakes in here, but yeah, I've got some. Okay, so I got concat. Let's see, concat. Let's see. Oh, it looks like I'm probably missing a parentheses. That helped a little bit. There we go. So what I did here is I nested two string functions. So I used concat to concatenate the first name along with the first initial. And if I really want to make this, I could, yes, I put A, and then we can go ahead and add another one. We could do this if we want. Make sure I put everything, and that's not what I want. Okay, let's see. Oh, what happened there? I was doing it. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I gotta put a comma. So one thing to keep in mind whenever especially when you're first learning, is oftentimes many of your mistakes, whenever you get an error message, is mostly due to syntax errors. Especially like if you're missing a comma, you're missing a parentheses, or maybe you misspelled your table name or a column name. That's typically what a lot of your errors tend to be. So oftentimes I find that the error messages aren't really that helpful. It will say like near line so and so, but really it comes down to oftentimes just simple typos, like like I mentioned, forgetting a comma, or maybe you misspelled your table name. Okay, so we've got that. Let's go ahead and let's see. I want to say they work in MySQL, but let's see. Maybe we want to use, let's see this. So we go ahead and do first name, last name. Let's go ahead and try this. Let's go ahead and see if there's a left function. Last name. And I only want to select the first letter. Let's go ahead and see if that works. Yeah, so it's looking like, so yeah, another option you can use instead of using substring is you can use left. So left, and I just select the first character from the left, which of course is going to be 1. I can just be last initial. Yeah, so you can either use left or you can use the substring. Now, of course, being there's a left, you are going to have a right. So let's just go ahead and see what this does. Let's say I want to select the first 2 letters of the last name. Well, if I put 2 in there, it's going to select the first 2. Likewise, if I put 3, it's going to select 3 letters and so forth. And so now we've got left. Let's go ahead and put the right on here. So now instead of selecting from the left, it's going to select from the right. So if you look at our last name here, we're selecting 3 characters from the right. So we should have AMS as the first one returned. So yep, AMS. And then so pretty much right and left are pretty much opposites of each other. So pretty straightforward there. All right. Okay. Now another one to keep in mind is the like keyword. Yes, like, depending on where you're working, may be frequently used. So what exactly is like? I'm going to go ahead and put it on here. So we're going to hit like. Okay, so let's say we want to find all of our employees who have a name beginning with the letter S. Okay. So to go ahead and do that, we're going to go ahead and select. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning. Select. And then once again we're going to add the where clause in here, where first name like, and we want to select only the rows where the first name begins with the letter S. So how does that work? Well, first thing you're going to do here is you're going to enclose it in quotation marks, and we're going to put an S here. We're going to put a S, and then we're going to put a percentage symbol. What the percentage symbol indicates is like, doesn't matter what comes after the S. Just as long as it begins with an S, that's all we matter. So the reason why this is like a kind of like a wild card. You got like the underscore and the percent. So pretty much as long as it begins with an S, it should be returned. So let's go ahead and run that. And I got an error here. Okay, so, oh, I forgot to enclose it, and there we go. So as you can see, we got only those with the first name beginning with S. So let's say we wanted to find, so like now we put, so this is where it can get a little complicated, is maybe you want to, and even myself, this might be challenging myself even. Let's see, if I want to put, maybe I want to put, let's see, but it ends in an 8. Let's see, but it ends in an 8. Let's see if it ends in an H. Okay, if I put, we want to, so like I mentioned, sometimes you want to break it down into steps. So like, but I want to figure out, I want to just, the goal is to select employees who begin with the first name with an S, but with their last letter as an R. So let's go ahead and break this down. So I'm going to go ahead and select, and because we want to end in an R, I want to say the percentage is there. Let's see if that works. Make sure I can close them. Okay, so there's nothing there. Okay, so R percent. Let me see. I want to say maybe that could be, because it's the underscore. Let's go ahead and use underscore and then R. So that might be one. Okay, there's nothing. I'll say nothing. Let's see. R. Let's see. So this is, so what I'm doing, so what's happening here is I'm trying to do some problem solving here. Now, let's see here. So if I select, so let's go ahead and we're doing ahead, and then, so we want to select with an S, and we put the percentage sign here. So we got Sarah, but now I want to have ends with an H. So if I put in an H, let's see what happens there. All right, so it looks like that works. So basically what's happening here is, as long as it starts with an S and ends in an H, it's going to be returned. So let's go ahead and get rid of that H. Let's say I only want to return those that begin with an S and end in an N. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding in a placeholder. It's another wildcard, but it has to end. It doesn't matter what comes after the end as long as the last letter is an N. So now if I should get Solomon and Sean. Yep. Okay, so that's an example of how sometimes you might have to just like kind of work your way through a problem, step by step. So that's an example of using the like keyword. And like I mentioned, it can get pretty complex. Like you can maybe, you want to say like, okay, well it ends in S, but so you might have to do a combination of like the percent symbol and an underscore like I did here. Okay, so we have the like, we did like. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and move on up to some aggregate functions. Yes, we've got count, sum, average, max, and min. So aggregate functions. So let's go ahead, let's go back up to our employees table. Okay, so we're going to figure out, okay, so first thing we can do is like, maybe we'll want to figure out, okay, how many rows are in our data set? Well, we can easily do that by using the count function. So we're going to go ahead and select count, and we're going to put in the asterisk in there from employees 1, and it's going to return 8. There are 8 rows in our data set. So that's an easy way to figure out like how big your data set is you can just use the count function. Now, if you actually put in like a column name in here, so if I put, and actually a better way to demonstrate this, let me use my member. Let's see, let's go ahead and use count. Gotta always make sure you start off with the select here. Select count. Okay, if I hit, so I've got 10 rows in my members table. Now let's see what happens. Let's see if I look at my member. If I want to look at my members table. Let's see, members, columns, membership ID. Okay, and I got gender referred by. Let's see. Let's do this. Let's do membership ID. Now, if I count by a certain column, membership ID, you'll notice only 7 rows are returned. So why is that? Why is it that even though there's 10 rows in our data set, but only 7 is being returned when I actually put in a column name in here? The reason for that is whenever you use the asterisk, it's taking null values into consideration. So it's counting every single row, even those including null values. Now, because the membership ID, some of the rows in this data set have a null value for membership ID. So if I go ahead and select, so if I go ahead and come down here and select, you'll notice that you can see here we've got membership null, 3 null values. So that's why only 7 is being returned. So if I put a column in here, say like age, there shouldn't be age, we should get all rows returned back. Yeah, so we get all 10 of them because there's no null values in the age column. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that if you're trying to figure out how many rows are in your data set, well, you just use the asterisk. If you want to find out how many rows, like maybe like how many have like null values, you know, like say there's 1,000 rows in your data set, and maybe you want to figure out if there's any null values in say like the age category. Well, that's where you could come type in the age, and if you're only getting say like 990 rows, well then you know you've got some null values. But there is a quick way to go about that as well. So actually before I move on to the next, actually let me go ahead and cover aggregate function since I kind of started that. Okay, so we've got the count. Let's go ahead and come back up to my employees table. So if I go ahead and hit execute. Okay, so we want to figure out how much is our payroll? Like what are we paying annually to all our employees? Well, a simple way to do that is we're just going to go ahead and select sum salary as total. Make sure. All right, and there we go. We go ahead and execute. That is our sum, 653,500. All right, so now if I go ahead and we can find out our average salary. We had average. That's our average between all the salaries in our table. And then we have min. What's our minimum salary? We have 58,000 is our minimum salary, and then last one is max. Max salary is $101,000. Okay, so that's pretty much using aggregate functions, and that's going to be really useful when we start getting into group by statements. Okay, but before that, I wanted to cover null values. Okay, so nulls. So go ahead and do null. So let's come back down here to my membership table. So I set. Right. So, okay. So maybe we want to select. We want to select only the rows that don't have a membership ID that's null. Well, we can do that simply by doing this. We can go ahead and select times for members where membership ID is not null. And go ahead and hit that. And so now, oh, I got an error here. Let's see. See what I meant? Like I said, membership. Yep, there you go. Yep, membership ID is not null. And then likewise, if I wanted to figure out where I had null values, I can go is null. So I hit execute there. Is null. So that's basically returning all the rows where membership ID is null. Okay, so that's a kind of a generally basic idea of how you can select columns based on whether they're null or if they're not null. And it's a good way to figure out if you're missing data or if you got data that needs to be filled in with a median value or average value, depending on how you're going to handle your missing data. Well, this is a good way when you're cleaning your data using SQL is using null to figure out where exactly you have those null values. So let's say we come back here. So let's go ahead and select. All right, let's go ahead and select from our members. All right. So like, let's say we're doing some serious data cleaning, and we have tens of thousands of rows, but we have only maybe a handful, like less than 1% of our data has no values. So what we can do is like, okay, I want to return only those that have no values. I just want to have return only the rows where all columns have an actual value. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and select times from, let's go ahead and select times. And once again, we'll use a where clause here, where membership ID is not null and referred by is not null. Alright, so we get, so now we have only the records where there are no null values, and then you can go ahead and depending on what you're going to do, you can download the file and then do what you're going to do from there, whether you're using Tableau, Power BI, whatever it may be. So that's an example of using null. All right, now we're moving on up to grouping functions. Yes, group functions. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and come up. We're gonna go ahead and use our members table, because maybe this might be a little. Actually, I'm trying to think because I really want to make sure this is a. Yeah, let me go select. Select times from members. All right, so okay, so I've got. All right, so I've got age. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's go. We're gonna go ahead and do the age. Okay, so let's say we want to figure out. Okay, we've got a lot of members from surrounding cities, but we want to figure out, like, are we targeting a specific demographic in each of these cities? So we're gonna go ahead and we want to find out what the average age is for each of the cities our members are coming from. So like, what is the average age of our member that's from the Kirkland area? What's our average age of a member from the Seattle area? So this is where using the group by is really helpful. And this can be, especially like if you're starting up a club and you realize like, oh, wait a sec, we have a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds coming from the Bellevue area, but looks like from the Seattle area, we have like a lot of 50 and 60-year-olds. So depending on what your marketing campaign, maybe you want to target those who are in their 50s in the Seattle area, or maybe you want to say target those who are in their 20s and 30s in the Seattle area to get more people coming to your gym. So we're going to go ahead and select the city and the average age from, we're going to as average age from members. Now you'll notice what happens here. I'm intentionally gonna run this. I'm gonna get an error. Yep. So pretty much, anytime you list a column here, you're gonna have to use it in the group by function. So of course if you've got an aggregate function in here, it's not gonna work because I've got city in there. So that's why you gotta use the group by from members. And so now we are gonna group. So we want to figure out the average age by city. We're going to group by the city. So what the group by does is it groups similar rows together. So for instance, the city column, all the rows that are Bellevue are going to be grouped together, and then all the rows that are Kirkland are going to be grouped together. So basically group by is grouping rows that have commonalities between whatever it is that you're looking for. So like for instance, like in the city column, it's going to group them accordingly. Okay, so group by, I'm going to make sure I put group by city. Let's go ahead, see, I got from member, see. So there you have, so that's how it is. So looks like from Bellevue, our average age is 39, Bellingham 55, Kirkland 39, and we can go ahead and add an order by in here. Order by average age descending. So, I got, that's simple typo there. Yep, that's a simple typo. So yeah, order descending. So it looks like our oldest demographic is coming from the city of Bellingham. And likewise, you can do like the minimum age. Kirkland, Bellevue. All right, Kirkland. And you can see we do city. See, what do we have? We have age, gender. So you can actually so here's an example, like, and most likely I'm gonna get another error message here. And I put gender in here. If I put, so yep, I'm getting an error message. So like I mentioned, when any column that you put up here, you're gonna have to group by it down here as well. So we can go average, we can go ahead and group by city and gender. So you gotta make sure that you're including it in the group by. Now the thing is also to keep in mind is like, you don't necessarily have to, so if you're grouping by city, you wouldn't have to actually type that in here, but it's not going to be really clear if you're putting in a group by and it's like you're grouping by what. So it does become helpful to actually put in a column name here. So we're going to go ahead and group by city and gender, and we're going to order by average age. So we're grouping by the city and the actual gender as well. So not a very good example here, but if you had like several rows of data, maybe you do want to group by not only the city, but by the gender as well. So you can group by multiple columns. So that's the group by. Let's go ahead and get rid of gender in here. And make sure I take that out as well. Alright. I got city, got to add a comma in there. Okay. So now we got in the group by. We got group by, let's see, group by. Now we're moving on to the having clause. Yes, having, not to get confused with the where clause. So the where clause filters by the row. The having clause filters by the actual groupings, meaning like, instead of filtering by row, it's going to filter by those rows with commonalities. So let's say that even though I found out what my average age is, I'm only concerned with those cities that have an average age of, say, above 30. And so if I put in a having clause, Seattle should not be returned. So once again, we're not filtering by rows, we're actually filtering by the grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and just and then you add in the having greater than or equal to, let's go ahead and change that to average. So let me go ahead and leave that out. Let's see what our average is. Yeah, so let's do it this way. I only want to return the cities where the average age is 40 or above. All right, so here we go. We're going to put in the having average age greater than or equal to 40. So now if I hit the execute, only those that are with an average age of 40 or above are returned. So that is how you use the having clause. Now you can actually use the where clause and the having in the same query. Now this table is probably not a very good example, but why not? I can go ahead and let's see I can go ahead and say like where gender is equal to male. So now what's going, so if we pay attention now, so what happened was, now what's going on is, okay, so keep in mind, okay, so it is the order that it's running, the query is running, it is actually going to take this where clause first. So we're filtering the data to only include records where the gender is male. Now we're going to be grouping by the city, and then if the age is greater than or equal to 40, out of all of our members who are males, then it's going to return those rows. And then, of course, everything else happen, the having by. But because this is based on only males, that's where we're getting, you can see here that the average age changed. Let's see what happens if I put female. If I put female, we only get one city. So yes, this is an example of how you can use the where clause and the having clause within the same query. But remember, don't get confused. Remember, the where clause filters by the record. The group by, the having filters by the actual groups that you created using the group by. So not to get confused. Okay, so that takes care of the group by, the order by. Okay, so now this is getting a little, okay, so now, so pretty much what I've got here, from, where, distinct, between, order by, like, null, having, you generally want to have a good understanding of what these are, as at least at the very, at the very minimum. Now, of course, there's a lot more to this. You want to be familiar with joins, set operators. You probably want to be familiarized with window functions, like partition by. Let's see what else is there. You might want to be familiarized with triggers, but let's see. Let's go ahead and we're going to come down here. And let's go ahead and select. Let's go ahead and select both of our employees tables. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. So I'm going to go ahead and select time. We're going to select from employees 1 and employees 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the execute. So what's kind of cool about this is I can come up here and I can, so we can see here we've got both of our employees tables returned here, and each of them has different names. But there are some employees that are in both tables. So like maybe this could be an example, like maybe someone's keeping track of like whether or not someone works in 2 different departments. Whatever the case may be. This is just for demonstration purposes. But okay, I've got my first employees table and my second employees table. Okay, so if I come here to my PowerPoint here, SQL set operators and joins. All right, so the union all. So basically how this works is it's going to return, you can select from 2 tables. And how this works is you've got each table has to have each column that you select has to have the same data type, and you've got to have the same number of columns in each of your select statements. So the union all is going to return anything that's in both tables along with duplicate values. So that's what the union all is. It's basically returning from both tables, and of course it's including both duplicates as well. Okay, so we come down here. So we got 8 and 8. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to select the first name, the last name, and gender. So we're going to go ahead and select. So we're going to do a union all. So we're going to go ahead and select first name, last name, and gender from employees 1, union, I don't need that there, union all, and then select, let's see, I want to select first name, last name, Now, before I actually run this, I'm going to show you what happens if you actually don't have the same amount of columns in each select statement. So select from employees to. I'm probably going to get an error message here. Yep. All queries combined using the union, intersect, or except operator must have an equal number of expressions in their target list. So yes, that's because I've got 3 up here and only 2 here. So in order to fix that, I just got to add a gender column in here and union all. If I go ahead and execute, so yes, everything is being returned, even if they're in. So like for instance, we have Woody Larson and Woody Larson. He's in both tables and it's a duplicate value, but he's being returned twice because that's what the union all does. It returns anything that's in both tables, even if they're in even if the same employees in both tables, it's going to return the duplicate values. So now we're going to move on to our next one, the union. Now this is different than union all. It's going to return everything that's in both tables, but it's not going to return like the duplicate. So meaning like for instance, Woody Larson was in both tables, but it's not going to return that same employee twice. So we come back to my SQL server here. So we had 16 records returned here. But if I take out the union all and just put union, so we notice here we've got Woody here and Woody here. Do we have any other repeat? We got Sean and Sean. So we're going to have, so now we've only got 8. Yes. So it's only taking those who are, they're in both tables, but they're not going to take, so like we can see here, we don't have multiple Seans, we don't have multiple Woodies. So that's how the union works. Okay, so now the next one, if I come back over here, is the intersect. This one is only going to return those employees that are actually in both tables. So they've got to be not just in one, but they've got to be in both tables. So yeah, intersect. All right, so we come back to my, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and select intersect. And if I hit execute, and once again, so let's see what's going on here. Okay. What happened here? Oh, that's what's going on. Oh, my bad. I'm selecting from the same dang table. Oh, I can't believe that. I was like, what's going on here? Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, so let's backtrack here. Okay, so come back to my PowerPoint. Yeah. All right, I messed up there. Okay, union all selects everything, even the duplicates. So union all. Here we go. I can't believe I made that mistake there. Employees 1, employees 2. Okay, union all. There we go. Okay, execute. Okay, 16 records returned. Okay, let's go ahead and take out the all. Now we've got, that's more like it. So now we only have 13 records returned. Yes, I knew something. Yeah, there we go. 13, because Woody is in both tables. Sean is in both tables, but it's not gonna return their names twice. So that's the union. That's the difference between union all. Union all returns to duplicates as well. Union doesn't return to duplicates. Okay, now intersect. Intersect. Go ahead and execute. So yes, now we're only getting those who are in both tables. Yes, that's more like it. Okay. So hopefully that cleared up any confusion. I apologize about that little blunder there, but yep, it happens to the best of us. Okay, so now we got union, intersect, and then we've got the minus, which is used in Oracle, or the except in SQL Server. It basically does the same thing. So except is basically going to return only those records that are in the first table. So if they're in both tables or in the second table, it's not going to be returned. So like, let's say you've got, so we got, like for instance, Woody Larson. He's in both the first table and the second table. But because he is in the second table, he's not going to be returned, because it's only going to return those who are strictly in that first table or select statement. So if we come back over here, we're going to go ahead and put except. And yeah, as you can see here, there's no Sean DeJong, there's no Woody Larson, because even though they are in the first query here, they are not in the second query, which is using the second table here, employees 2. So that is one thing to keep in mind, that whenever using minus or except, if they're even though they're in the first table, but because they're in the second table or they're in both tables, they're not going to be returned. Okay, so that takes care of set operators. Whew. All right, now we're going to get into the real fun stuff, and what I call really fun. And this is probably where I'm going to leave it off at, are joins. Yes. Oh, SQL joins. And this gets a lot of people, especially if you're a beginner, even myself. When I was first learning SQL, I struggled quite a bit with joins, but fear not, they're not as bad as they seem to be. And so we're going to go ahead and get rid of this. Okay, so, but we're going to be using, let's see, we're going to go ahead and use, but before I get to that, I'm going to go ahead and select what are my tables here. So I got members and memberships. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and select Okay, so we've got our members table here and our membership. Okay, so if you look here, we've got our membership ID. And we want to figure out, let's say someone's asking us and they want to figure out, like, okay, which of our members are like platinum members, gold members? Well, we can't really tell too much by looking at this column, even though it kind of gives us a rough estimate of what it may be. I mean, B100, G100, but I mean, what's that supposed to mean? Now, as you can see down here in our memberships table, we can see here that these are matching values. Now, one thing to remember is this is where you're going to be utilizing foreign keys and primary keys. Each table can only have one primary key, but you can have multiple foreign keys in a table. Now, there is one thing to keep in mind, is sometimes a primary key can be a composite primary key, meaning like 2 columns can make up the primary key, but it doesn't mean that you have 2 primary keys. So not to get confused between having like only one primary key and a composite primary key. Composite meaning 2 columns make up that primary key. So in this case, the primary key for the members table is the ID column here, and the membership ID here, this is the foreign key, and it references the primary key of the memberships table here. So we got the foreign key here referencing the membership ID. So when we're using joins, we're going to have to make that relation between the foreign key and the primary key. Okay, so we come to my PowerPoint here. So the first thing we've got is the inner join or join. So usually by default, if you don't specify right join, left join, outer join, it's going to default to the inner join. So it's only going to return those rows that have matching values in both tables, meaning like if there's any null values in either of the tables, those rows are not going to be returned. So the join. So we're going to go ahead and do our first join here. Okay, so as you can see here, there are no null values here, but there are over here. So we're going to do our first join. And I'm just going to keep this nice and simple here. I'm not going to worry about selecting specific columns. So I'm just going to go ahead and select. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select. So we're going to go ahead and select. Select from members. And this is where we're using table aliases will become really helpful. Let's go ahead and select from members, and I'm just going to select let's see, member, let's put mem, and then join. We're going to hit join. you can either put inner join or join memberships. I'm going to just put ship. Okay, and then so join memberships on. So we're going to do member. So basically how this works is, remember, I'm using the table alias here. Remember, like earlier we had aliases for our columns. Now we're using aliases for our table names. So we're going to have member here. So member dot, the foreign key here is membership ID. Membership ID is equal to mship. I'm using the table alias here. Dot, remember the primary key here, mship dot membership ID. If you don't put in the table name here, you're going to get like an error message saying like ambiguous. It's going to get some like ambiguous statement. Okay, so membership ID. Let's see, that works. So yeah, referred by. We're not worried about the referred by. We're just worried about the membership ID. So remember, any of those rows where they had a membership ID was null is not returned. So that is the inner join. So you can put it, you can either type inner join or join, same thing. So yes. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and let's do first. So that's not so confusing. Last name and age and gender. And we're going to do ahead and do actually no, I'm going to keep it that way. We can make sure. Okay, so cool. All right. So now that's our inner join. Basically, it's returning only those records that have matching values in both tables. So now we're going to move on to our full outer join. The full outer join is going to return not only those records that have matching values, but it's also going to return every single row from both the right table and the left table, and wherever there isn't any matching values, it's going to put a null value in there. So the full outer join, you can either put outer join or full outer join. So come back over here, and so if I put full outer join, as you can see, everything's been returned. So how do you know which one is like the left table and the right table? Well, whichever table you put in first, so because I'm putting in members first, that's going to be our left table. So this is members, and then whatever table we're joining on is going to be the right table. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is it goes from like left to right. So we start off with members, that's our left table, and then this is our membership table. So as you can see, there is a lot more being returned. So we have here membership ID. Some of our members do not have any members assigned to them. So like, for instance, we don't have any basic plus members. We don't have any bronze members. We don't have any silver members. And then over here, we've got some members over here that don't have any memberships. They might just be like on a trial. They may be like on a 7-day trial or 14-day trial. So that's an example of using the full outer join. Is it's going to return all records with matching values along with those with non-matching values, and wherever there isn't a matching value, it's going to put in a null value. Okay, so for instance, this can come in useful, especially like when we get to the right joins and left joins. Maybe we want to figure out what members do not have a membership. That's where using the left or right join will come in handy. Okay, so now we've got our left. Now we're going to move to my PowerPoint here, and the left outer join. So like I mentioned, it's going to return every single row from the left table, including those with matching values, and then wherever there isn't a matching value, there's going to be a null value. So we come back to my left. So we come over here, back to SQL Server. we're going to go ahead and put left join. So we're not going to have all this stuff over here. We're going to just put a left join, execute. So now we have everything from our left table, and wherever there isn't a membership associated with that member, that's where we're going to get those null values. So now, for instance, we want to figure out where we have like our non-members. Well, we can do, say if I don't have a, see, just like, see, membership. Oops. Yeah, I'm just having a little. Alright. Alright, let's see. Alright, so that's what I wanted to do. Okay, just have. Sometimes you just have like those, brain lapses here and there, but okay. And that's the thing with joins. Joins, but yeah, they can kind of be a little tricky. And even like, yeah, but that's why you want to practice. Every day, whenever you get the chance, I would highly recommend you practice SQL queries, but especially practice those with joining 2 or more tables at least once a day. If you can't do it once a day, at least like once every other day, but really, because pretty much your chances are when you're on the job, you're going to be having to select data from multiple tables. So yeah, so in this case, looks like we've got 3 members that don't have any memberships. Okay, so that's the left join. Let's go ahead and take my word clause out. So basically now the right join is pretty much the opposite. So we come over here, the right join. Everything from the right table, all rows, including those that have matching values, is going to be returned. And then wherever there isn't a matching value, there's going to be a null. So come back over here, and we're just going to put in right join. Right join, hit execute. So yeah, we got everything from our right table, but we also get those that don't have any values here with a null. So like, because we don't have any, yeah, so basic plus, bronze don't have any members. And let's see, yeah, platinum doesn't have a member. They don't have, silver doesn't have a member, basic plus. So yeah, that's an example of using the right join. Now, what's interesting is you can basically like switch the tables around. So like if I were to, so basically this would be, this, I want to say this would be, so a right join, this would be the same thing as doing like a left join, but switch it. So if I switch this to left join and I switch these around, it would be like pretty much the same thing. So the whole idea is whatever table you're putting in first, it's going to be your left table. And then the second one is going to be your right table. That's the main thing you want to really keep track of. Okay, so that takes care of the that join. Then there is, let's see, if I come over here, what else is there? So there are some other joins. Yes, there are other joins. So we've got the self join, which is a table, you're joining in a table on itself. The cross join, the equi join, that should be join, let me fix that. There we go. And the non-equi join. So what is a cross join? Well, you're not going to typically use this unless you're probably like into like developing like an app or something, or maybe this could also be used maybe if you're trying to figure out like all the different combinations you've got of something. But what it's going to do is it's going to return the Cartesian product. So if we come back here, and I'm going to go ahead and select, so we got, so if I recall, there are 10 rows in my members table and 7 rows in my memberships table. So if I select the members, cross join by cross join memberships, I'm gonna get a so yes. So basically what this did is it basically just returned every single combination. So yeah, like I mentioned, not very useful. But maybe like if you've got like say like a small table that's got like say like you've got like four blue colored shoes, three white shirts, two yellow pants, and so forth. Maybe you want to figure out like what are all your different combinations of mixing up your clothing, and so forth. But yeah, that's so cross join memberships. Yes, okay, we got that cross join. Okay, so now we got, so I got that cross join, self join, natural join. Let's try a self join. I'm gonna try this self join. Let's see how well this. Okay, so let's go ahead and come. Let's go ahead and do my members. Let's go ahead and select. From members. Okay, let's go ahead and select. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got a referred by column here. And we're wondering, okay, well, whoever, let's just say whoever typed this in didn't want to actually type in the actual member name, who referred them. But this is basically what referring to the actual member who referred this particular person. So as you can see here, we come over here, referred by, so like Eric was referred by ID number 2, Leslie Howell. And then we come down here, John was referred by number 4, Frederick Carlson. And as you can see, we got 2 more people that were referred by Leslie. But we want to figure out, we want to see who it, like, instead of like having to do this step of like, okay, well, 2 is Leslie. What if we want to write out a query that can actually solve this for us? And that is where a self-join comes in handy. So this is going to be a little challenging because self-joins can be a little tedious, but what you have to do is you're basically having to come up with like 2 table aliases for the same table. So we're going to go ahead and do, I'm going to make this, and because we've got the first and last name in separate columns, I want to make this into a single column. So I'm going to have to concat both of these first names and then combine it. So I'm just going to kind of talk as I go along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and concat, and I got first name, see concat, let's see, I'm trying to I gotta make sure okay, so yeah, we'll refer by, and let's see, I said what I'm doing here is I'm break. Okay, here we go. Okay, so concat first name that. So I gotta do it this way. That mem first name, mem. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm using the table alias here. Let's see if I. Okay, so like I mentioned, what I'm doing is I'm breaking it down into smaller steps. So I've got that. I've concated the name. But I'm going to have to do the same thing because we want to figure out what members by who are who referred our members. Okay, so referred by. Then I'm going to have to come up with another. Let's go ahead and make this a little more readable here. And actually, to make this readable, I'm going to come down here and then concat, and then I got to make sure I put a comma here, and then concat, and we're going to go ahead and put member, let's see, member m ships dot first name. Okay, so I got that, and then we're gonna join members mem on member, let's see, on members that so yeah, so basically what I'm trying to do here, let's see, get rid of okay, so join on member. Okay, so if I do, okay, so if I do, let's see, if I do member on mem.id is equal to, and then the other column was referred by on m. Let's see if this works. Yep, it worked. So okay, so what I did here is, first thing is I concatenated the first and last name and label it as referred by. So basically this is the person that referred the member. Then I concatenated the and as you can see here, I used the table alias. So basically I'm creating two table aliases for the same table, and that's kind of what makes self joins a little tricky. So concat the first name, the last name referred by, and then that's the actual member from members mem. That's my table alias. Now I'm joining the members table with another alias m ships, and then I am linking them together by the member ID column. Remember, the member ID column had that member ID column, and then the memberships alias is being linked by the referred by column. Okay, so that is how you do a self join. Another application of using a self join might be like if you have an employees table, and oftentimes you may have like you're going to have like, even like a manager is going to have like an employee ID, but then like there's going to be a column for the employees table that might have like manager ID as like a separate column. So oftentimes you might see that like, oh wait, well, we want to figure out like who is the manager of our employees. So that's where a self join comes in handy as well. But it's pretty much the same concept, same process, and you just have to kind of work your way through it. Take it step by step. But yeah, I think this is going to be, I think that is a wrap up for that as well. But I'm going to conclude it with that. So what did we cover in this video? So basically we did, let me go ahead and just get rid of this. We did having, we did set operators, which includes union all, union, intersect, and except. And then we did joins. Yes. joins. All right, we did joins, and then that included, of course, a self join, inner, outer, cross, right, and left. So yes, those are all the different things we covered. So at the very least, at the very minimal, you want to have a good firm understanding of how to run queries with these statements. Obviously, you're probably going to want to be comfortable with even more. Like in my next video, I'm probably going to do another one similar to this, probably the exact same format. I might try to be a little more organized, but I'm probably going to include some window functions like partitioning, rank, dense rank. Let's see what else is there. Subqueries, or nested queries. Let's see. Oh yeah, common table expressions. So in all fairness, I would say to begin, you'd want to at least have a general good understanding of what we covered in this video. But adding to that, do be confident in, like I mentioned, window functions, common table expressions, know what triggers are, subqueries. Yeah, it seems like a lot, but if you practice every day, it shouldn't be that bad. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, but I think that's going to do it for now. And that was my very first video of actually trying to run through some SQL to help you who are trying to get into the field of data analytics get your hand on some SQL practice. So until next time, thank you for watching. Until next time, peace.